Our speaker, Suzanne Stauffer, spent 20 years as a librarian and then another 20 years as a professor of library science and library historian. And now she's decided, that wasn't enough. I'm not sick of books yet. I'm going to go be a novelist. And she lives in Albuquerque with her Australian husband and brown and white spotted rat terrier doctor. What? No. Oh.
He is our doctor.
He is your doctor?
Daughter.
Daughter. Thanks. May. Oh, she sounds delightful. Okay, so Suzanne is gonna get up here and talk about adding authenticity to your writing, and I'm gonna get out of her way so she can do that. Stage is yours.
Okay, great. Thank you all for being here. As I said in the introduction, I was a librarian for 20 years. And so this is, and then when I taught library and information science, but I basically taught library science, I taught reference. So a couple months ago, I was doing some research on my current novel, and it dawned on me that, oh, most people don't have my background. So they may not know about these resources. Some of you will know, all of you will know some of them. Some of you will know all of them, but I don't think all of you will know all of them. Apologies to Abraham Lincoln. So the first category that I want to look at are atlases. Now we've all heard of atlases. I know this is from the shelves of the Albuquerque Public Library, main library genealogy collection, which I find strange that genealogy and local history are separated, but they didn't ask my opinion. You can see some of the titles here that it's not just road maps, but atlases include geological maps with things like rivers, mountains, forests, obviously road maps, by country, state, city, even region. Some of them include indexes by name to places. You can also find navigation maps. So if you're writing about the sea, you can find maps that will help you to give the authentic, correct directions. There are also thematic atlases, which give you such themes as agriculture, geology, climate, history, industry, languages, population, religions, resources. We could go on and on. Other characteristics of a geographic area. So whether you're writing historical fiction, current fiction, nonfiction, if you want to add some authenticity geographically, you can find atlases that will give it to you very quickly. And these are not necessarily digitized and online. If they are, they aren't always free. But at your local library, you can get them for free. And a lot of these, they just will be the first time you've seen them. The next category are gazetteers, which has always been one of my favorite words to say when I was thinking, gazetteer, ooh, can I use it just to say it? These are dictionaries of places. Generally, they are going to be alphabetical by name. They will include your cities and towns, but they also include geographic features, and they provide additional brief information about the location. Some also include thematic indexes. They may also be hierarchical. So it may be state, county, city, village, whatever, neighborhoods, you might find that. So here in this Omni Gazetteer, as you can see, there's 7, possibly 7, might be an 8th one, divided by region. So we'll look at the one for New Mexico, just so you can see what it looks like. Now this is a modern current gazetteer, it was when it came out. It gives the name of geographic features as well as places. They're just alphabetical. It tells you the type of feature, the county where it's found, the location on the USGS map, which the library will also have. It gives you latitude and longitude, and then there's a key at the bottom for the source of the information. And sometimes there's other data there. So you got a lot of information in very small space. And again, if you want to add some local color or local information to what you're writing, you can quickly find something in that area, you know, that your protagonist is going to cross a river, and now you know what that river is. Some of my favorite, however, are gazetteers by topic, and one of them I selected is an historical gazetteer. Go to the next page. So this gives a lot more information than the previous one. You can see that it gives you some really nice, quick historical information about the place. So if you just need that chronological data, what year did this happen? You can get it here very quickly, and you're getting some other information. And of course, there's some little information at the top about New Mexico. It's a lot more targeted. You're not getting a million and something hits when you Googled it. You found exactly what you needed. The next one. Okay, this is the CIA World, somebody made a title, World Fact Book, and it started in 1977. Those are not online. The oldest ones you'll have to go to the library for. The current ones are. Can you click on that link? Here we go. Oh, it doesn't like this. Well, while she's doing that, I'll tell you what it does. This is the CIA. So this is your tax dollars at work. It provides basic information on the history, people, government, economy, energy, geography, environment, communications, transportation, military, terrorism, and transnational issues for that year. So again, you can see it has historical implications, but it has current implications. It allows you to explore individual countries. There's a drop-down list, you go to the country. It also has information about oceans and regions of the world. And finally, it will give you travel facts. So if you've got somebody traveling somewhere this year, you want to make sure that they could actually go there, that there wasn't some kind of prohibition. There are country fact sheets, which you can download as a PDF and print out. There we go. Just kind of scroll through it. There's a little fact of the day that changes daily. Updates, just keep going. There's the explore countries. The fact sheets condense all of this. You can download them as PDFs, which means you can print it out, so you don't have to keep going back and forth. It also gives you flags of the world, if you needed that. And you can get, so here's the regions of the world that you can look at. Various oceans, and then the country comparisons. If you need, anybody needs something like that, you don't have to sit down and take it all and put it together. They put it together for you. Oh, and you can apply for a job at the CIA. So, so this is, again, one of my favorite resources. It's annual, it's current, it's free. You can get to it from home. But most people don't know about it, or if they do, they don't realize. I mean, when we learned about it in, again, my reference class, I thought, oh, somebody's calling themselves. No, this is the CIA. The next category are almanacs and yearbooks. And by almanacs, there's a couple of titles. They do what they say they do. The Old Farmer's Almanac has a different sort of perspective from the World Almanac. Various libraries will have different titles. So on all of these things, you go to the library, you say to the librarian, I'd like to see an almanac. They'll give you what they've got, and they'll all be good. By yearbook, I don't at this point mean your high school yearbook. I mean these books that come out every year that are a compilation of what's happened this year, dates, statistics, current events. The World Book Encyclopedia has put one out since they started publishing. Britannica has one. The official title is Book of the Year. A lot of people call it Year in Review. And that would actually just be usually at the end of those encyclopedias on the shelf, or currently it's going to be online. These are not free, however. You'll need to go through your library. And then there are yearbooks of associations and organizations. These are not annual reports, although they may incorporate an annual report, but it will tell you who the members were, who the officers were, what events that organization held, any kind of significant information about it. For example, here we have the Albuquerque Business and Professional Women's Club yearbook. So if you're writing women's fiction and you want information about the Albuquerque Business and Professional Women's Club for any year, you can find it at the library. Next, and this is my absolute favorite and what I was using, and those are city directories, and I do not mean the phone book. Most people, including library school students, think you're talking about phone book. No, these are published by a variety of companies. The most well-known is probably Polk, the Polk directory. Another thing they're called is the Crisscross directory, and we'll get to why that is. They started publishing in the late 1890s, early 1900s. And Albuquerque Public Library has them all the way back to whatever the first one was. I can't remember if it was 1901 or 1899. So from the table of contents, which is my phone picture, you can see the range of information that is provided in these city directories. It's about the city, it's about the county, the state, even US officials in Albuquerque. So for a given year, if you want any of this information about your place, it'll be in a city directory. And for sometimes they're by county. Some of our rural counties where they're tiny little cities, there will just be one. It'll have the county seat and everybody else will be in it as well. Albuquerque, of course, is big enough to have its own. So it will provide for you, next slide, basic information about the city for that year. So we know that in 1929, because that's what I'm looking at, I know the population in the city, form of government, University of New Mexico is already there. We had a zoo, we had 5 city parks. Anything I want to know, if I want to set something in Albuquerque in 1929, and I want to look like I know what I'm talking about. Principal industries, the airport, and what airlines came in. It has a splendid all-year climate. It gives you the names of government officials, including the judges and chiefs of police, which in fact I then used in my novel. They don't talk to him but they have to go to the police station, and there's his office with his name on it. So you just get that little more sense of being in that place at that time. Next slide. So here's the just a page. This is the miscellaneous. Hudspeth is the one who published this. State government, now we know who the senators were, who our representative was, state officials, state judicial department, district courts. You're just getting a lot of information in very few words, but it's what you need to know for what you're writing. It lists, I said it wasn't a phone book, and in 29 it wasn't because almost nobody had phones. But it does list everybody, businesses and individuals. At this point, they're combined alphabetically. It gives you the address. It will later give your phone when phones start becoming popular. But also notice it's giving men's wives' names. It's giving their profession. So again, you can find out a lot of information. I'm mostly interested, yes, in the Buckakis. So I see the amusement company, who's working there. Mary, Arthur, and Victor. I also can see they owned apartments. Then you see we have them as members of the amusement company, and then we have with individuals. There was a dry goods company. So you can see the kind of information you're getting here. So this is by name. The other thing it does is pink one. There we go. Street directory. Now, this is what this has that nobody else does. It's also why it's called a crisscross, because you can look anything up by address and it will tell you what is there. It goes through the entire city. In this case, it's alphabetical by name of street, and then it's telling you it begins yeah. So it begins at the railroad and it extends to William. And here's at this address, Juan Espinosa, this is who's living there. And it will go street by street through the entire city. And note also, and this is just an aside, look at all the advertisements that's in the margins. So you're getting more information about the city. These are, and they're going to be successful businesses because you paid for these ads. So if for some reason you wanted to know, was GE being sold? You actually now have information here. There's another section, the business directory, the categorized or classified. Note that these are by type of business. So it tells us who was who. Here's all the dentists. You got to send your person to a dentist. You got dentist names. You can send them to a real dentist. Are you looking for a detective agency? There are, and if somebody says to you, I don't think there were detective agencies in Albuquerque in 1929. You go, oh, yes, there were. I have actual proof. And this is where they were located. So that tells us both who was doing what, and it tells you what was being done, what kind of services were being offered. So what would be authentic to put into your historical novel? I was also thinking, if you were doing a contemporary work, but you wanted to really establish a neighborhood, you could say, yeah, it was the old Albuquerque Ice Company, which has now become this. Or the bank had moved from here to there. So it's not, again, not just historical, very useful for that, but depending on what kind of background and the depth that you want to go to. I was also thinking with the street directory, and I may come out with one of these. I thought, if you were doing a ghost story, you could have a real ghost haunt that place because you could know who in that year was living in that house. And so then you can go through. So what you can also do is go, what they did for a living, all kinds of stuff about them. So it's a contemporary novel, but you have that background you want to add. Now for my book that I'm writing now in 1929, I wanted a tourist camp or tourist court that existed in 29. So I went to, it took me a while to find it because I was looking at motel and that's not what they were called in 29. So I started, and this is where I actually liked the paper better than getting it online, is I just started going through page by page till I hit it. Tourist camps, that's what they're called. Here is alphabetically by name, but you can see the addresses and notice that they are all on North 4th. In 1929, that was Route 66. It didn't change until I never remember if it's 32 or 37 that it cut off through Santa Rosa. 29, that's Route 66. You can see what is there. You can see the names of the places. I picked King's Rest because I like the name, not for any other reason. I'm also intrigued by the deluxe service station, campgrounds, and grocery. And notice King's Rest, it's in all caps and it's bolded. And it says, see page 114. What that means, and we will go to page 114 next, is that they have a paid ad in the yellow pages. So here it is, their newest tourist court. I was like, oh, so I picked one that opened in 1929. I know that it had cottages of 1 to 3 rooms. It had steam heat, hot and cold water in each cottage. It had gas for cooking in the kitchenettes. Some of them have private tile baths. Now, I know it's some from something else, but there are private tile baths. I also know who the managers are. If I need to have my characters interact with Mr. or Mrs. Robinson, and then I feel like I'm on Lost in Space. I've got the address, I've got the cross streets, I've got a telephone number. So I have so much information now about this tourist court that can allow me to draw a decent picture of it. Also, if I need somebody has a house that needs work done, I can send them to McDowell Brothers. And I'm really interested in Mildred B. Huffstetler. She has nothing to do with my book. But I thought, my goodness, look at that. A woman with her own business, and this is the kind of work she was doing. So again, I might go off on a tangent or use that in another book. So again, the level of information you're getting. So now I've got the King's Rest. I know what it was about. I want to know what else was near it, because I'm going to have my characters going to it. So I went back to the address page. It's on North 4th, and that's the one on the left, just showing 4th on my north, and then starting at Central, going through. So about a page through till I get to King's Rest, which is on the left. I wish I had 1816 King's Rest. I have that from the other, and I see that on one side of it, because they're even numbers, is something called Midnight Lunch. And Bezemek's Dairy is on the other side. Actually, looking up, I see Bezemek had some apartments right there too. So now I know what was on either side of it. Midnight Lunch took me down a whole nother path. I won't go into it for you, but I will tell you, it turns out it's a grocery store that was open all hours. So you could go there for your midnight lunch. So my characters now, when they get on, when their show at the chemo is finished and they come back at midnight, go to midnight lunch and get eggs and make eggs in their kitchenette. And all of this just comes from this one source. And that reminded me while I was doing that, I thought, oh, well, you know, I want to know what else was around the chemo in 1929. So I went to that page by address. And there it is. It should be there. Where's the chemo? Yes, up at the top. Second one, Chemo Theater Building. Oh, I also find out what is in the rooms. The office rooms that they had. First floor is the European, that's the second floor. They had 2 levels. Now I know who was there. And the 3rd floor was all US Forest Service. Not sure what I'm doing with that, but it was interesting to know. I also know, now they don't show what 103, but I know it wasn't vacant because from my previous, I know that's where Bakeke had their office. Why they don't list it here, I don't know. Also, I can see that the Kiva Fountain is in the chemo building, 423. So, oh, somebody could go get something at the fountain, a malt or a soda or a cup of coffee. So now, I kind of finished there. Just getting back to the yellow pages, which those of us who remember phone books remember the yellow pages. This is actually why they were yellow, because that's the color that these directories used for their ads. They're half page, quarter page ads. I think you could probably buy a full page, but I don't think anybody ever spent a ton of money. These are just kind of in there. I couldn't find any real order to them. But when you find, as with the King's Rest, it will tell you what page it's on. There's also an index in the front, alphabetical index in the front by business name that will tell you what page their ad is on. Reason I copied this one is, again, I was kind of flipping through and I went, driverless cars. Now, what is this? Driverless cars. And there's like 3 of them. What is, well, it wasn't hard to figure out. You were renting a car that didn't come with a driver. It's not like a taxi cab. It's not like a car service. It's what we today would just call rentals. And it is rent a car you drive. So I worked that out and I thought, well, 1929, what if my characters need a car? They're not going to say we're going to go get a rental. They're going to get a driverless car. Yes, and then have my readers going, why? But that, again, giving that flavor, that atmosphere of 1929. The Pioneer Bakery, which I wasn't looking for, but look at that. Now I know Buttertop and Betsy Ross were two brands of bread that were being sold. So I can add that in if it works. Got some information on Albuquerque National Trust and Savings Bank. So there's, again, lots of information in these. That's why I say they're my favorites. I can just spend all day just going through, wow, look at that. And again, if you're doing something that wants how the city changed, these are really ideal. And they are not available online. It's not worth the money to digitize them for the most part. And like I said, the public library has them, the later ones are the pulp directories. So switching to biographical resources, talking about these people, I might want to know more about these individuals. Next slide. There we go. This will be quick. We have two types, dictionaries and encyclopedias. The difference is dictionaries are little short entries, encyclopedias are longer, half page, full page, maybe 2 pages, depends on who it was. And these are, first of all, the usual who's who, which you can see here. But there are also biographical dictionaries by profession, by ethnicity. There's a very old one, Who's Who in Colored America. So want to know at that time. Geography, who's who in this place. We've got a portrait gallery if you want pictures of people. You just don't know what you're going to find. Just go to those shelves and look, because famous Mexican Americans. You can find them by surname. There will be a biographical dictionary of, oh, I don't know, Washingtons, starting with George. One that might be of interest to some of you is the Encyclopedia of Cold War Espionage, Spies, and Secret Operations. You just don't know. And they're not all nonfiction. There is the Women of Classical Mythology and the Zombie Book, the Encyclopedia of the Living Dead. There's also encyclopedias of myth and folklore. So there are a lot of, and they will tell you about, the legendary characters and give you that information. If you're writing fantasy, you're writing a horror, you may not want to use that character, but you want to find out what kind of characters were out there other than the few I've heard about. You can go into these encyclopedias or dictionaries, it doesn't really matter. And again, these are ones I'm saying, talk to your librarian, ask what have you got, show me the shelves and let me browse and see what is there. Next resource are newspapers. And yes, I think you're going, oh yeah, yeah, true, news stories, obviously. But the personals ads, you find all kinds of interesting stuff there. The want ads from various perspectives, what kind of jobs were being offered, how were they being offered, what did they say? I'm old enough, and most of us are old enough to remember the days of help wanted male, help wanted female. Advertisements, and this is the one. My husband was in newspaper business in Australia, and I was saying about one of the, I think it was the midnight lunch. I was saying, I cannot figure out what it is. I don't know. It was something, and he said, "Well, did you look in the newspaper?" I said, "Oh, for heaven's sake, why would they be?" He said, "No, an ad Because that's what he did. He sold ads for the papers. And I went, oh, advertisements. Yeah. And I'll get back to that. I just want to quickly note that in Albuquerque, Bernalillo County Public Library gives you access to Chronicling America. Suzanne, it's a typo. Chronicling America. These are digitized newspapers, Library of Congress program, 1836 to 1922. They're online, they're available. You can go to them right now. Those you do not need to have library for. They have search functions. You can look at it by county. You can look by name. They're generally, they're grouped by state. ProQuest historical newspapers and the newspaper archive library edition. Both of those are subscription only. So you would need to go through the library, but I believe you can do it from home. All right. So getting back to those advertisements. These are microfilm. This is the other thing. These have not been digitized yet. I had to go to the library and use the microfilm. And I picked January 1st, 1929, because I didn't know how long I'd have to look before I found what I wanted. So that, well, I'll start with the first day of the year. My interest for this one was what was playing at the chemo. Well, there it is. Look at everything else on that page of ads. I mean, you've got just people selling wood and coal. And I went, oh, yeah, if they're heating their houses, you've got, and who was selling it and how many different people were selling it. You've got some fun thing. You've got a dance tonight. So now you know Selva's was a dance hall. All kinds of other stuff going on that day. Taxi. Clifford's Taxi. So whatever you want to find. And the next slide, just to say, the pastime, the reason I have that one there is the Bakeki's also on pastime. So now I know what was going on at pastime and what kind of shows they were doing. That was the cheap place. That was the budget place. You got in for a nickel or a dime. It was showing second run films. I get all this from an ad. Also, there's the Pekin Cafe, and there is their entire menu. So if I want to send somebody for a meal, there, I know what they were selling. It doesn't, I don't say the price. But it does tell me that information. And another ad for the chemo. This is a later, not the first. So that's what was playing, whatever date that was. I can't read it from here. The Sunshine Theater is now, I know from these ads actually, the competitor of the chemo. It's doing much the same sort of thing, although they're doing a lot more vaudeville than the chemo. Because the chemo was your high class primo place, but the Sunshine was giving it a run for its money. And finally, which I hadn't mentioned, the Coney Island Sandwich Shop, which I knew about and was going to do research on later. It's what is now Lindy's. It opened in 1929. I didn't know that. I found that out here. It says newest. It's selling Coney Islands for a nickel. What is a Coney Island? That was a different issue. I can tell you what it was in a minute. But this is it. That's what it was called. The Coney Island Sandwich Shop. Right there across from the chemo. Coney Islands. And it's interesting because about a month ago, the Smithsonian published a little article about it. They were basically hot dogs, but they came with stuff on them. Chili, as in not chilies, but chili. Onions, relish, sauerkraut, all kinds of, you had your choice of what you wanted on these dogs. And they don't actually have anything to do with Coney Island, New York. But that's where the name came from, but not, they wanted that connection. Turns out, and they're mostly in the Midwest, so what was it doing in Albuquerque? The chain or the idea or whatever started was Greek immigrants. Now, I went back at that point to my city directory. This was owned by Greeks. So some member of one of those families came west and opened up his own Coney Island sandwich shop. And I got all that from the newspaper. The last category, well, next to the sort of last, are your local history collections. That's where you get your high school yearbooks. And yes, the Albuquerque Public Library Special Collection, Maine, not special, Maine genealogy collection hasn't gone back as far as you can think. And you can get all kinds of stuff. I kept thinking, wow, if you were writing a contemporary novel and you wanted to have the high school quarterback from whatever year who was either really rich or really poor, whatever you're doing with him, you can go back to that year and you can find it. You can find this picture. They may also have copies of the high school newspapers. Depends on the library, depends on the school. You'll also find family histories, and these are the history biographies, memoirs, the unpublished, or in the old days, the ones that were run off on a mimeograph or copy machine and then given to the library and distributed to every member of the family. And those have, I use some of those for my dissertation. They have all kinds of information you won't find other places. By ephemera, that's brochures, flyers, pamphlets, all kinds of stuff. It could be put out by the government. It could be put out by individual businesses. It could be put out by organizations. You can find all kinds of stuff in there. Brochures of tour groups, all kinds of different things that they wanted the public to know. Obviously, archival collections. And these here are in the Special Collections Library. You can sometimes find scrapbooks and minutes of meetings that were either put together by individuals, the scrapbooks, or by organizations. And minutes of meetings can be really fun. They can be really boring. But they can be there. Photographs, complete photographic collections. And then all kinds of other stuff. Who knows what it is? Go to your library. Ask them, what do you have in local history? And along with local history, I would also say one last slide. This is our last slide. Audiovisual materials. Oral histories, which may or may not go under local history, which have not been transcribed, or the transcriptions of them. And then documentary films. I was at a literary festival, and the woman on the panel with me wrote fiction about Japan following the bomb. And she found some really modern documentary films that talk to survivors. And so she got a lot of information from that. So you may find them on DVDs, you may find them streaming. Some places may have local news. Film may have radio broadcasts. It depends on the size of the library, what's available. Again, ask your librarian. So those are the large categories and some of the items in them. I guess I can take questions now.
Thank you again for that, Suzanne. I learned a lot of things that I didn't even know existed. So that was cool.